morning, sir, and members of the committee. I'm Dwight Washaba. I'm the Executive Director of the Sacramento Regional Conservation Corps. And on behalf of the Sacramento Regional Conservation Corps and the California Association of Local Conservation Corps, which is a network of 14 nonprofit organizations serving young men and women throughout the state who do resource conservation and protection work statewide, we are pleased to see funding for urban forestry, parks, energy efficiency included in Senator Steinberg's cap and trade investment plan, working along with Senator De Leon. When the state partners with the Conservation Corps, it not only gets a cost-effective partner, but it gets reaps the co-benefit of young at-risk youth being trained in green job skills to be our next future generation of green leaders in California. In addition, local corps are well positioned to provide direct benefits through these types of projects to the state's most disadvantaged communities. Local corps throughout the state recruit their corps members predominantly from those communities and provide services that directly support and benefit these communities. We are therefore ideal partners for furthering the goals of SB 535.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Washburn.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Johnson with Shot and Lights Advocates, speaking on behalf of the California Airports Council. This represents the 34 commercial service airports in the state. First and foremost, we'd like to say thank you for your time and effort with the long-term cap and trade investment plan. But as you move forward, we would like to ask that low-emission airport vehicles and infrastructure pertaining to cargo and passenger operations be eligible for the low-carbon transportation funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Moira Top here on behalf of both the Orange County Transportation Authority and the Low-Span intercity rail corridor that runs from San Luis Obispo all the way down to San Diego. We're in strong support for three main reasons. One, it's the right mix of projects. Two, it's a long-term strategy that I can't stress the importance of how for local operators to have a permanent source and a reliable source. And thirdly, a hope that as you put the details into the plan, that the local perspective remains paramount, that there's been a lot of work done at the local level. There are a lot of formulas that exist, especially in the transit world, that can be married with greenhouse gas reduction targets that can achieve the goals that you're looking for. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dopp.
Good afternoon. Megan Hurdle with Audubon, California. We appreciate that the proposal has dedicated resources for the natural resource sector. We, of course, would like to see it be more than 7%. And we're also focused on how those funds will be rolled out. So for the last 2 years, we've been part of a coalition, and you'll see all of the logos on the letter that just was passed around. And in that letter, we cite our support for SB 1268 by Senator Bell, which proposes a single program that would be administered by the state conservancies and the Wildlife Conservation Board for the natural resources segment of this. So please consider that as you look at adopting a proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Burr. I'm the Executive Director for the California Association of Resource Conservation Districts, and I'm here to support Megan's comments. And in addition, I would like to add that since we see a really great opportunity on private land for carbon sequestration, that money and projects be available both for public and private land activities. Also, we really want to stress a priority on funding for fuel load reduction and reforestation in order to reduce the carbon emissions that happen from wildfires.
Thank you, Ms. Burr.
Good morning. My name is Laura Ratcliffe from the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority. We've also signed on to the letter that you're holding, and I'd like to just reiterate Megan and Karen's comments. The plan for fiscal year 14-15 includes natural resources money going through the WCB. We agree with that. We would just add that the conservancies are an existing mechanism that can get money out the door quickly to the best deserving projects. It's a structure that's ready to go. And we'd also like to point out that the 7% allocation under this plan is too low when you consider what the ARB has prioritized in its scoping plan and in the investment plan. We'd like to see a little more for natural resources. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you, Mr. Radcliffe.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Michael Carroll. I'm with Rural Community Assistance Corporation. We are a nonprofit community development financial institution and a housing developer, and we're also members of the California Coalition for Rural Housing. We want to join in the thanks to Senator DeLeon and my own Senator Steinberg for including affordable housing as an important component of this plan. We are concerned that rural housing projects be considered and be eligible to compete for funding. We've heard a lot about the value of siting affordable housing in metropolitan areas and near transit lines. We know that rural affordable housing projects can demonstrate substantial environmental impacts, and we also believe that for reasons of equity and the fact that many rural communities are disadvantaged, that they be allowed to compete in their own context for affordable housing funding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
Good morning. I'm Tim Anderson, Sonoma County Water Agency. I also work with a coalition of local governments on this subject. And we've been advocating for an allocation of some of these revenues for local government programs, cities, counties, and special districts. We believe that given a competitive opportunity, this sector of the state can make a great contribution to meeting our greenhouse goals. And we realize that this process is already far along here. It may not be possible to add new sectors to the bill at this point, but we would ask the Senate to consider in the future how to mobilize the local government sector or how to include local public agencies in some of the categories that are in this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Good afternoon. Rob Weiner with California Coalition for Rural Housing and the Rural Smart Growth Task Force. In the interest of being redundant, I would also like to commend the strong leadership of Senators DeLeon and Steinberg in promoting the use of these dollars for affordable housing near transit. We have seen that affordable housing near transit does reduce GHG emissions. We also believe, however, that much of the state is in transit-poor areas, but suffer from severe air quality problems. We would ask that the legislature consider other metrics for affordable housing, such as the production of zero net energy or near zero net energy homes, as well as reduction of vehicle miles traveled, not only to transit, but to jobs, to hospitals, to schools, to services. These can make a measurable difference in terms of reducing GHG in many parts of the state that do not have really good transit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiner.
Hi, Christina Lockie with the California Special Districts Association. We too are a member of the Local Government Coalition. I want to echo the comments of my local government colleagues and also just note that a competitive program for local governments that crosses multiple sectors will both encourage collaboration with other public agencies and community organizations, as well as promote projects that have multiple co-benefits. This will help result in projects with deeper GHG emissions reductions and other benefits, as well as by streamlining the process a bit, create efficiencies in the distribution of funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olagi.
Mr. Chair and members, Aaron Niemela representing the Infill Builders Federation. I feel it appropriate to note that if we were all in cars, the GHGs would be off the map right now. Want to start by thanking the Pro Tem and Senator DeLeon for their long-term thinking in this area. We specifically support allocating funding by region for the SCS planning process and those projects. We would only stipulate that it would be great to give the MPOs as much discretion as they require. They are in the best position to determine how to reduce GHGs, and if we micromanage them, that will be more difficult. Second item is we would like to see a separate pot for HCD to allocate to affordable housing because of the risk of gentrification that the Pro Tem noted earlier, and we think that can be integrated with local planning. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Christina Ides, representing the Efficiency Council, a trade organization representing more than 70 companies that provide energy efficiency products and services. We support allocating funds to energy efficiency building retrofits and energy efficiency load reduction planning activities that are consistent with sustainable community strategies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tyrone Buckley on behalf of California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation and also a member of the Rural Smart Growth Task Force. Our organization, CRLAF, represents rural communities, the rural poor, and farm worker communities. We're very enthusiastic and encouraged that this plan includes, it shows a connection between housing and GHG reduction. And we think TOD is a great place to do that. With its focus on transit hubs and high-frequency transit corridors, though, TOD is not a program that's very easily utilized by rural communities that lack a lot of that transit infrastructure. There are ways, though, for rural communities to contribute to GHG reduction, and that's through improving the jobs housing fit, making sure that housing is built closer to jobs so that vehicle miles traveled goes down and thus GHGs go down. So we would like to see funding go to programs that have been proven to build affordable housing in rural communities like the Joe Cerna Farm Worker Program and the Self-Help Housing Program. And that any formula that's created is inclusive of, is broad enough to be inclusive of strategies in rural communities. Finally, I'd also like to applaud the point that Senator Steinberg made around one of the public policy goals being social equity, and doing work in rural communities will really reduce VMTs and also help us achieve that public policy goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley.
Good morning. My name is Christine Noda, and I'm the Regional Foresters Representative representing the 18 National Forests of California, which are about 20 million acres. Almost one-third of California is forest land. These forests present the safest and most expandable method for actually removing carbon from the atmosphere. However, California forests are under significant threat. Our forests are burning up at a disturbing rate due to changing climate and the current densification of our forest. We're now in a cycle of chasing fire. Last summer, just one of the fires, the Rim Fire, emitted one-third of all the carbon sequestered by all the forests of California just in that single event. That's equivalent to about 2 million cars on California's roads. We've had no end to our fire season this year. There's been 2,000 fires since January 1. It's now an endless season. We can turn this cycle around, though, by increasing the pace and scale of our forest restoration work. As we increase our restoration work, we're going to have a large amount of woody material that needs to come out of our forest, and the win-win solution is for those to go to bioenergy facilities. It not only creates renewable energy, but it also creates rural jobs that are essential.
Ms. Noda, if you could conclude, please.
Yes. And our only other option without these plants is to pile and burn or leave it for forest fires to put into the air. So we urge greater investment in forest restoration and biomass plants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Phoebe Seaton, Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability, also a member of the Rural Smart Growth Task Force. We strongly support the inclusion of affordable housing in the spending plan, and we repeat what some of our colleagues said, that we want to ensure that affordable housing dollars are available for all Californians, from urban centers to rural farm worker communities, to ensure that all of us can contribute to GHG reduction strategies and create strong, healthy, sustainable communities throughout. Thanks so much.
Terrific. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. Brian Augusta on behalf of Western Center on Law and Poverty. And on behalf of our low-income clients, we are supportive of the proposal for a long-term multi-year spending plan. We think that's the right thing to do this year. And I want to just say two pieces about the housing proposal. We're very pleased to see the commitment to housing in the plan. Senator Steinberg, his SB 375 clearly laid out that how we live and where we live is going to be key to reducing GHG in California, and committing to investing in housing is a logical extension of that concept. We are very supportive of ensuring that that housing money is administered through the State Department of Housing, which has the experience and expertise in administering housing funding programs. And we look forward to working on the details with your staff and with every single registered lobbyist in Sacramento over the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Augusta.
Good afternoon. Kara Martinson on behalf of the California State Association of Counties would like to align my comments with my colleagues from the Local Government Coalition and Transportation Coalitions. We do support an increased role for local governments within any cap-and-trade framework. We believe there's tremendous potential at the local level for not only transportation-related projects, but those within the energy, waste, and resources sector. We do believe it would be a missed opportunity not to utilize that existing capacity at the local level, where there are reporting metrics, there is infrastructure available, but not the necessary resources to complete projects. So in any final framework, we do support increased local agency eligibility within these sectors and a competitive grant process to make sure that the projects with the biggest greenhouse gas reductions get funded. Thank you.
So noted. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Steve Wallach. I'm here on behalf of the Alameda Contra Costa Transit District, the Alameda County Transportation Commission, and the Center for Transportation and the Environment. In particular, we support the long-term aspect of this proposal, the commitment for transit operation or transit services funding in there, as well as the administration of funding at the regional level. We think that's critical. And in particular, for the Center for Transportation and Environment, the $200 million or the 15% for the low-carbon transportation is critical for the eventual commercialization of zero-emission transit buses and heavy-duty trucks.
Thank you, Mr. Wallach.
Hi, Claire Van Zuyden here on behalf of Proterra Electric Vehicles International, as well as Joseph Farms. We want to echo CalStart's comments in regards to $200 million this year for low-carbon transportation, as well as the ongoing at least $500 million for low-carbon transportation. Proterra's fast charge buses, or transit buses, provide the opportunity for all Californians to ride an electric vehicle and realize the health and other associated benefits. Fast charge transit bus technology is ripe for immediate scaling now, and an investment is critically needed to provide a strong spark to accelerate the entire transit agency or industry, as well as transfer technology for electrification of goods movement corridors and routes around the ports and congested movement corridors throughout California. So EVI, Electric Vehicle International, is actually located here in California. They manufacture their trucks in Stockton. And we just want to emphasize that funding is crucial to help further deploy these electric trucks, as delivery trucks are the last link in the goods movement logistic chain that go right up to the door of these sensitive receptors. And finally, Joseph Farms is a leader in anaerobic digestion. They are a cheese or dairy farm in the Central Valley, and they would like to encourage maximizing funding for waste diversion, as anaerobic digestion provides not only diverting waste, but also reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
All right. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Sean Garvey, Chair of the Bioenergy Association of California, an association representing 55 agencies, project developers, and conservation organizations working to build bioenergy projects throughout the state. We believe bioenergy represents a unique opportunity, the ability to produce up to 2 billion gasoline gallon equivalents of negative carbon intensity fuel. So rather than the conversation about simply reducing emissions but still emitting them, with bioenergy we're getting a benefit of negative carbon intensity fuels. Bioenergy includes renewable gas and bioelectricity from wastewater and food waste digesters that could eliminate 3 million tons of organic waste from landfills, as well as 10 million tons of carbon annually. Our dairy and ag producers, with their digesters, could produce bioelectricity and transportation fuel, clean water on farms, and nitrogen for agriculture. And our forest bioenergy projects could produce up to 710 million gasoline gallon equivalents a year of transportation fuel, while eliminating 52% of black carbon. Of the black carbon in the state of California, 52% of it is coming from catastrophic fires. We strongly encourage you to affirm funding for these bioenergy projects in the long-term investment plan, as well as encouraging you to direct that funding to the appropriate agencies with the needed technical proficiency in implementing those projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Seville, and I'm with Clean World, and I'd like to ascribe to Mr. Garvey's comments, but also we were signed on to the proposal, which was a blended approach proposal that was submitted by over 47 coalitions, industry organizations, and companies. I definitely want, for the record, to be able to support the current long-term plan and the proposal, and I'm appreciative of the 7% set aside for natural resources and waste reduction. But you may or may not know, but Clean World is the company that actually commercialized and pioneered high solid anaerobic digestion technology that came from UC Davis. In this community, we have 3 operating facilities, and we're diverting more than 60,000 tons of organic waste and converting that into both renewable natural gas and green electricity. And pound for pound, if you look at the investment dollars, and dollar for what you really are getting when you're investing that money in AD or like AD projects, that's converting that 30% of organic waste into RNG and green electricity. you can't get a more powerful, immediate, deliverable impact for creating climate resiliency in communities and really achieving the GHG reductions that you need. I understand it's a balancing act for priorities, but please do pay close attention to what you can understand about the impact of organic diversion and conversion into both RNG and green electricity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Jenny Woods on behalf of the Local Government Commission, a nonprofit that represents over 100 local governments across the state. And we're also part of the larger coalition that represents local governments throughout California. We commend your commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions in California, and LGC strongly supports an increased allocation of cap-and-trade auction revenues to local governments for greenhouse gas emission reduction projects. We support the concept of a competitive local grant-based approach. Local governments have existing networks, programs, and shovel-ready projects to immediately reduce greenhouse gas emissions and create green jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Woods.
Good afternoon. My name is Krista Darlington. I'm here with the Placer County Air Pollution Control District and representing several other air districts on this matter. Today, we wanted to bring up one issue that wasn't focused on so far in the proposal, which is the reduction of catastrophic wildfire. As mentioned by the U.S. Forest Service and others, the current latest scoping plan approved by CARB recognizes that over 50% of the black carbon produced in California comes from catastrophic wildfire. The way to reduce wildfire is to get in and reduce the fuel loads in the forest. That produces waste, however, and if you pile and burn that waste, you're not resolving the problem. What you need to do next is take that waste wood and use it for energy, which has the side effect of producing renewable energy, which is, a good side effect. So what we'd really like to suggest to you today is putting an emphasis and putting actual language in the 20% you have for energy and waste, and saying that those projects should emphasize fire reduction, because there is a clear tie, a tangible tie between reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and reduction in wildfire. It should be put on as a requirement for both of those sections, or at least an emphasis. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ms. Arlington.
Chairman, members, Rachel O'Brien, on behalf of the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, the South Coast Air Quality Management District, and the Union of Concerned Scientists, all are greatly appreciative of the opportunity to be a part of this conversation and to the efforts made by Senator Steinberg and Senator De Leon. My brief comments are focused on the low carbon transportation piece, where we support full funding of the $200 million for low carbon freight and passenger vehicles, and strongly support the prioritization for this spending in low income communities where pollution impacts are the most severe. The Union of Concerned Scientists would also like to place special emphasis on the need to allocate $80 million for freight. We believe that these monies are urgently needed for incentives to demonstrate the advanced freight technology and its ability to move cargo around California, and we believe that this will have a major benefit on communities near freight hubs. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien.
Hi, good morning. Mike Robeson on behalf of the Glass Packaging Institute, and I want to thank the Senate leaders for revisiting the cap and trade proposal on the Senate side, particularly as it applies to the natural resources and waste diversion component. If you're not aware, the glass container industry in California pays into cap and trade and fits all the criteria that have been outlined over the years for expenditures of those revenues. We've been the glass container industry has been supporting the bottle bill or the container recycling program through their processing fees for as long as the program has existed, and so those expenditures have helped already to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and paying for cap and trade essentially is paying twice for the same effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So getting some money back to support the companies that are likely going to be looking at increases on the processing fee to continue to support the recycling program. Getting some money back would help them a great deal, and getting some money through cap and trade is consistent with the goals of SB 535, and that the glass container plants in California are located in disadvantaged communities. And we again appreciate the support or the efforts of the leaders and the Senate Budget Committee. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Robeson.
Yes, Charles McIntyre, I'm president of the West Coast Protective League. I'm here to support this proposal. This proposal will help the glass container industry immensely. It will help them continue to work on their AB 32 stuff they need to do. It'll also stop leakage of our jobs. It'll also help keep the high-wage union jobs here in California. And the glass container industry is huge in the recycling, and the more that the container industry and glass industry as a whole recycles, the lower the carbon footprint and greenhouse gas emissions. So, we see this as a win for us. Usually we're up here opposing a lot of legislation that's going to harm us, and actually we have something here that could really help our membership and help the workers here in California. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre.
Mr. Chairman, the members, Jerry Haliva on behalf of Owens, Illinois, the largest glass container manufacturer in the world, and we have 3 plants in California. Senator Monning has been through the facility in Tracy. Senator De Leon has been through the facility in Vernon. You know that those plants rely on cullet, reused glass in order to lower their emissions, and to the degree they lower their emissions, it not only helps the overall environment, but particularly impacts the communities in which they're located. So it really is in keeping, Senator De Leon, with your legislation about reducing impacts in disadvantaged communities. There's an environmental justice component to your legislation that I think meshes well with the need for the glass industry to reduce their emissions as much as possible. So we're greatly appreciative of this committee's attention to this issue, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mr. Halif.
Thank you. Marina Wyant on behalf of the California Housing Consortium. I want to thank the senators for the recognition of the important role that housing plays in greenhouse gas reduction, and we are in strong support of any long-term spending plan that invest funds in housing that meets this threshold. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wyatt.
Frank Oliveira, Citizens for California High-Speed Rail Accountability. It's my understanding that AB's 32's goal was to establish some greenhouse gas reduction standards that we would reach by 2020. In looking at how things would be allocated in the plan, it appears that high-speed rail should not get 15% of this. That should go to rail. Intercity rail will get people out of their cars. It will relieve congestion. It will create jobs. It will get people to work. It does all those things. High-speed rail multi-generational construction project does not meet those 2020 goals. It appears that giving that money to high-speed rail is inconsistent with SB 375, at least in the first section of the environmental impact report, which would be what we're building for the next two decades. In the southern Central Valley, we are the poorest area of the state, I'm told. This will just add to the pollution in our area, which I'm told is some of the worst. Intercity rail will get people moving, will get people out of their cars. High-speed rail will not in our area, at least for a couple decades. All that said, continuing on with these ratios does not appear to be consistent with SB 535 because low-income, disadvantaged populations in our area would bear the burden of this project.
Sir, if you could conclude, please.
1018, SB 1018 would likely come into play also because I'm sure there'll be legal challenges to using AB 32 money this way.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who would like to offer comments? Senators, I think you've hit a nerve. Clearly, big issue before us. I think we've had a full conversation today. A lot of good suggestions were made, so I know we've been taking notes that you've been doing the same, and you're certainly welcome to make any closing comments.
I just want to thank the chair and the committee for taking this amount of time, and I reflect in the exact same way you do, Mr. Chairman, the breadth of support that we saw here today for a long-term investment strategy that aggressively tackles the climate change challenge, creates high-wage jobs, addresses social equity, and is diverse in terms of its approaches. The time is now. If not now, when? Let's get something like this framework done over the next couple of weeks. Look forward to working with the Assembly and the Governor. I want to especially thank Senator De Leon for all of his foundational work and work over the last months to help pull this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Just briefly, Mr. Chair, I want to thank you for your indulgence, the committee members of the Budget Committee, and I want to thank our staffs who worked very, very hard. I also want to thank the stakeholders who've taken time out of their very busy schedules to come here and collectively voice their strong support for the Senate version of the cap-and-trade auction dollars. I think this is historic, because how we invest these dollars again to underscore and reemphasize will send a very clear message, not just statewide, but throughout the country and throughout the world, that now we're beyond the AB 32 theoretical goals, and we're now into execution and implementation through the cap-and-trade scheme. And again, how we move towards a low carbon economy by the creation of real jobs that are tangible, that can be outsourced or offshore to other parts of the country or other parts of the world, will speak volumes. And our goal is obviously that regardless of who you are and where you come from, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or decline the state or agnostic, we want to make sure that the narrative is that we put people to work. We actually reduced carbon, and in some instances we never manufactured carbon at all whatsoever. And we're way well on track, no pun intended, to meeting our goals and showing the rest of the country that we can do this in an intelligent, transparent manner that's highly accountable, that's measurable, that's verifiable, that you can quantify that we've actually met our goals. And it's going to be a win-win-win situation for our environment, for our economy, for our community. So, Mr. Chair, as well as members, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity, allowing the Pro Tem and myself to deliver what we believe is the best product out there as it relates to our carbon goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator De Leon. Thank you, Senator Steinberg, committee members, and of course, all of the public who took time out of your busy day to share your thoughts with us. So the next step for this investment strategy for our cap-and-trade revenue will be to bring this to our conference committee as we continue the conversation there and formalize something within the next 10 days as we pass our budget on time by June 15th. Thank you all. We are adjourned.